Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally here. The NFL draft is tomorrow, and we here at the Real Forno Show are going to have a great conversation leading up to it. Joining me tonight are three true draft sickos that have an immense knowledge of the Minnesota Vikings and what is going to happen in the NFL draft. We're going to talk all the latest news, and we're going to try and see what the Vikings might do come Thursday night. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Welcome to the Real Forno Show. Managing editor of the USA Today's Vikings Wire. Betting and college football analysis for the Fantasy Points website. Publisher of Substack Run and Shooter. Host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as a founding member of Vikings First SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Forno Show. As you can see on the left, joining me, I have two esteemed colleagues and one that can't spell. Just to my left is JP Acosta of SB Nation. To his left, AJ Schulte of RPM Data. And the one who can't spell, my contributor at Vikings Wire, Kevin Fielder. Gentlemen, welcome to the fun.
Tyler, I will have you know I can spell. I just choose not to. It's a different.
That's worse.
So you're actually smart, but you choose to be dumb. Is that what it is? That's
absolutely.
I actively choose to reveal that I have no grasp beyond a fourth grade capability with the English language.
This is like
God.
It's like Kevin from The Office. Why speak so much? So few word do
with
trick.
Little word do trick. Yeah.
You know what? I'm just excited for Kevin to message me. Hey, my article is going to be a day late because I spilled a bowl of chili on top of my computer.
Okay, so it would not be a bowl of chili; it'd be a bowl of cereal. Let's at least get our bowl-like foods in place, Tyler.
You know what? I was making an office joke and you ruined it, so thanks for that. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. I know this is the Minnesota Vikings show, but we need to talk kind of big picture because everything's going to impact them. Let's talk Houston Texans. They are rumored to not take a quarterback at number 2, but take an edge player, and I find that strategy very interesting. I think they're a few years away from really competing, and you could argue that building up the trenches might be smarter than taking a quarterback here, especially if they're not absolutely in love with one that will be available, which it kind of sounds like they're not with Bryce Young going number 1 overall. Like, where are we at with this strategy of not taking a quarterback and going with an edge player?
I think it's the dumbest idea ever.
So, for people who watch Succession, there are moments when Kendall or Roman are trying to negotiate something themselves and end up colossally screwing everything up. This is exactly what's happening with the Texans. They think they're outsmarting everybody. They think they're going to end up being like the next draft day sequel is going to be based on the Houston Texans. No, this is really bad. They're either throwing up the most elaborate smoke screen or the entire franchise is run by 4-year-olds.
Sonny Weaver Jr. is really. We're basically sitting at this scenario where they would break about a half century of draft precedents. So it's like how smart are you to really do
just
this?
For good vibes?
Just for good vibes. And the weirdest part is they had a really good pass rush last year. They were, I think, top 10 in pressures and getting to the quarterback and quarterback hurries. It's not like they were bad last year. And this notion that I think it's mainly just because DeMeco Ryans had Nick Bosa in San Fran. So clearly that's worth more than a quarterback.
Never let them know your next move. You always got to keep them on their toes. You think you're going to go quarterback? No, pass rusher. You think you're going to go receiver 12? No, go offensive line. Keep them guessing.
What I want to see happen is the Jaguars' war room just burst in laughter like the Jalen Reagor selection. I want that same exact thing to happen. I want
I
the
need a
Colts to
live
sit there at
one.
4 and just cry laughing.
I need a
Be
No,
like, we
no,
get
see-
to watch Davis Mills
see-
again. Let's go.
See, AJ, I personally want them to go like Tyree Wilson at 2, and then be like, yeah, you know what? We're not done. We're gonna trade up for a quarterback, and then just like take Hendon Hooker. Just be like, we fell in love with the tape, and just be like, we traded back into the top 10 to get our guy.
Hey,
Just
never
because
let
I
him
want,
move. Never
just
let
because
him
I really want to see, I really want to see how they'd have to defend
Oh,
that to
yeah.
the media afterwards.
It's big
Like,
brain time.
I would love to see them have to sit up at the podium and go, yeah, you know what? We just really fell in love with Hendon Hooker's tape. And we would have taken him at 2, but we knew we could get him later. Or some like
It's like-
stupid nonsense like that.
It's like that Galaxy Brain meme where it's like the original
Literally.
brain. Draft CJ Stroud at 2. Galaxy Brain. Draft an edge rusher at 2. Even larger Galaxy Brain. Draft Will Levis at 2.
No, the funniest outcome is they draft Hendon Hooker at 2, just straight up. That's the funniest. The funniest outcome in this whole thing is Carolina and Carolina taking Levis at 1 and Hooker going to Houston at 2. That's the funniest outcome of this whole scenario.
No,
I don't.
no.
If the Panthers take Will Levis at 1, I need to see like the entire production rooms for NFL Network and ESPN. I imagine it's going to be that spot where everybody's running around, everything's on fire, they're throwing papers around because we don't know what the heck just happened.
Okay. I just want to go really niche here. I don't know if any of you guys watched this NBA draft, but it's the Anthony Bennett NBA draft where the Cavs took Bennett 1, and the entire ESPN announcing crew went, "Whoa!" Just like screamed "whoa!" like they weren't expecting it. I want Hendon Hooker at 2 because it's going to be that reaction from like Louis Riddick and like Daniel Jeremiah, and just be like, just no one has to like try and defend it, and they're all just like, "Yeah, this pick sucks." I'm not even going to sit here and try and defend
It's
not.
like Joe Rogan, like,
I want Mel Kiper Jr. getting up and running off like he's just saw a praise dance. I need him getting up and sprinting. I need him going crazy. I need him to straight up like ether the pick.
I want him to beef with Nick Cesario. Like, I want that to come back and just be like, what the heck are you thinking, man? Like, you are.
Oh my god!
My one beer is not going to make it through the whole show at this rate. Holy shit!
You knew it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen.
You could end up being the Texans and have multiple beers before taking Tyree Wilson at 2.
Listen, you're not gonna like my mock draft tomorrow where Tyree Wilson is going number 2 overall, but that's a whole different story.
Okay.
Texans.
Okay. No wait. Real quick. I have one more doom scenario that's even funnier, and it's they stay put at 2. They don't take a quarterback. They don't take an edge rusher. They take Bijan Robinson at 2, and they're like, "Yeah, guys, we solved all our problems."
There was a post going around last night. JP, you didn't see it because Elon sent you to the shadow realm, but it was talking about how Bijan Robinson at 12 for Houston would like solve the GM satisfaction in ownership. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like he's from New England. They don't care about first round running backs. They just got no,
AJ. They did take Sony Michel in New England. Let's be clear. They did choose Sony Michel in round 1,
and then they traded him away for peanuts 2 years later. Like,
and they drafted Gopher legend Lawrence Maroney in round 1. Let's just remember that.
Yeah, Bill Belichick hasn't exactly drafted logically over the last 10 years. So, I mean, this is just another step in the New England round.
Take Bijan at 2, Jake Moody at 12. Let's ride. Never let move.
All right, let's continue the conversation. We need to talk about the third overall pick here, guys.
Paris Johnson Jr. All right, we figured it out.
The Arizona Cardinals have been rumored to move down, and I have been told by multiple people that the Vikings have been talking with the Cardinals for a long time to try to get up there. And it sounds like it's going to cost a pretty penny. At what point...
That scared the shit. That scared me.
I'm not 100% sure what the eventual cost will be if they make a trade, but at what point...
Justin Jefferson.
At what point is too much too much? Like, what would you be willing to pay to go from 23 to 3?
I would not trade Kirk Cousins.
I'd give up multiple firsts to get up there. I think the first this year, first next year, maybe the first after that, maybe this year, second next year. Look, man, if you have the opportunity after the Texans inevitably do something extremely stupid to get up and do something smart, I would take that opportunity 100%. If they're asking, it depends. If they're asking for like a billion picks and like ransoming you off like you're the Rams, I don't think you need to do that.
That's kind of a low blow, JP. First of all, like that's kind of just like a shot out of nowhere.
Look, live by trading first round picks, die by trading first round picks. I don't want the Vikings to die by trading first round picks. I think 2 first round picks and then 2 seconds. I think that'd be a perfectly fine deal for the third overall.
Hold on. Is that including this year's first? So 2 extra firsts or just 2 total?
2 total. Including this first year. This first.
I would be willing to go 3 firsts if you feel confident enough on an Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud to be like, this is our guy. We won't need these first round picks. I would be willing to go 3 firsts and a day 2 pick, but the minute you start getting extra day 2 picks in there and going, you know what, we want 2 day 2 picks and 3 ones, I'm probably walking off the table I'm walking off the table. No, I'm probably taking like the trade off the table and probably just waiting inevitably for one of these quarterbacks to fall, because like if Houston does something stupid at 2, which seems to be the likely scenario, I think it's almost likely that one of Stroud or Richardson falls a little bit. I mean, I just think that's likely at that point. And so, like, if you can get to 8 or 9 or 10 and Stroud or Richardson still on the board, that suddenly now becomes a two first round pick trade, including this year's first. So,
and I mean, Atlanta should be looking to pretty much trade back. I mean, if they're not sold on anybody for real at 8, they can trade back, get more picks, and figure it out.
And they could take Bijan Robinson at 23 instead of taking him at 8. It's like a perfect solution.
Where this gets tricky is there's not ever really been a trade from the 20s that high. It just hasn't happened. The only one I can think of was the Bills moving up for Josh Allen, I believe, in 2018 with the Cordy blend.
Yeah, that was 22 to 12 and then 12 to 7.
Yeah, so like without a previous move, essentially.
I found multiple instances of trade ups. There have been 3 trade ups from the teens to number 1. The Rams did it for Goff from 15 to 1, and then the Patriots did it for Irving Fryer 16 to 1, and then I can't remember who did it, but it was 17 to 1. So Irving Fryer, learn your football history.
Irving Fryer,
shut up.
Yeah, he was with Robin Hood, in case you didn't know.
The only 2 that I've found that went from the 20s into the top 10, 2011 Falcons going from 27 to 6 for Julio, 2 firsts, a second and 2 fourths, and then the Chiefs went up for Mahomes 27 to 10, 2 firsts and a third.
Yeah.
See, I feel like if you want to go straight from 20s to top 3, it'll take multiple first round picks.
Yeah, I mean,
it would take quite a lot. You could.
It would almost certainly have to take 3. I mean, it almost certainly have to take 3 firsts.
Tyler, if you want to reenact, you can send. Hold on, I got to look at Dallas's haul real quick. First round pick, second, a 6th, a first, second, and third. I'm reenacting the Herschel Walker trade here.
I want you to eat shit.
That was the smoothest comeback from Tyler ever.
It was so casual.
Here's the funny part about that trade. The Vikings GM Mike Flynn was incredibly naive because he thought, because I'm including all these players, they'll keep the players. But all the players had draft pick contingencies where if they cut them, they got all these picks. So they traded all these players. The Cowboys got rid of them and then just reaped all these picks. And it's just like,
it's truly, truly incredible content. But I mainly just wanted to bring that up just to mess with you.
So I just think that like with this year's class, and JP and I talked about this today, next year's class, with the way the 2024 class is looking at quarterback, and you maybe have 4 or 5 guys who are going to be round 1 dudes. I mean, I don't feel comfortable trading like 3 firsts or 3 firsts plus like 2 day 2 picks for Anthony Richardson when Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Pratt, Quinn Ewers, like Michael Penix, like that. It's a good quarterback class next year. There's no point in trading your entire.
But there's no alien. Like, here's the thing. Anthony Richardson is like if you took Dante Culpepper to exhibit and he turned him into Pimp My Ride. Like, that's what we're looking at here.
But it is but it is also entirely the situation. It's entirely the situation where Anthony Richardson is such a unproven commodity that he either hits and he's like an all-pro quarterback or he flames out. And if you're trading 3 firsts and
like
2
every
seconds
other
for a guy
quarterback ever.
Yeah, but I think the hit rate and the bust rate on a guy like Anthony Richardson is far more than like CJ Stroud. Because CJ Stroud, it has the floor of a top 20 quarterback. Anthony Richardson doesn't have the floor of a top 20 quarterback.
At this point last year, we were also saying, hey, why wait and draft a quarterback last year when you can pick a quarterback in the 2023 draft?
Well,
and now we're going to be like,
JP, let's be clear. The quarterbacks last year were Malik Willis and Sam Howell, so no one did anything wrong there.
Whoa! Don't disrespect more fumbles than touchdowns. Falcons legend Desmond Ridder. All right, let's not.
And of course, Panthers starting quarterback Matt Corral. I mean, the list is just going on and on of like stars.
So, let me put it this way. Here's my take on waiting for a quarterback. If you identify the guy, you go take that guy. If you don't have that guy, then you wait. And it's not like, oh, I think I can get Caleb Williams. Like, if there are 2 quarterback needy teams at 1 or 2, you're not getting May or Williams next year. And there are massive.
Well, good. Michael Pratt's just as good.
You still have question marks about those 2 guys. Pratt's got to prove it 1 more year. Like, Penix has like.
He's fine.
Penix has 10 season-ending injuries at this point. Ewers can barely hit the broadside of a barn, but he can throw towards a broadside of the barn 70 yards away. Like, there's so many question marks. And, like, we thought the 2021 quarterback class could have been really good. Or, sorry, the 2022 class. And it ended up being booty. Like, don't count on next year.
But here's the thing. I still think there is a limit to the trade. Like, I don't think you go in there and go take a limit. Like, I don't think you go in there and go, yeah, you know what? Just take everything. You know what? Take the entire franchise too. Like, at some point there has to be a limit to what is a logical trade.
A+ NFLPA rating. Take it all.
Yeah. Like go ahead and take every trader and food nutritionist that we have. Like, at some point there has to be fair value.
Look,
sorry, Justin Jefferson. We traded all our draft picks, so now you have to pay for lunch and dinner.
The Vikings are
all right, Arizona, calm down.
The Vikings are not Miami Hurricanes superfan John Ruiz. They're not going to give out billions of dollars and end up just not working and getting investigated federally. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think
you
get two first.
I have a comment. We haven't even talked about the Cardinals. And we're supposed to be talking about pick 3, and we're haven't said a word about
Cardinals.
This
because
is a Vikings show.
AJ, this is a Vikings show. What do you think we're going to talk about? The Cardinals, the Packers?
They don't even like talking about themselves. You saw those uniforms? They don't want to talk about themselves. They don't even have the name in front of 2 jerseys.
What do you got, Dave?
GMAC asked, and it's a good question. Why would they trade up and get a quarterback for 3 firsts and give away, any opportunity further down or whatever? There is a reason for that. Most people aren't thinking of. When Kwesi and Kevin got hired, they got hired on 4-year contracts. One is already in the can. They got 3 years left. They've either got to make it or break it by the end of that first 3. So they may gamble and take however many first picks, and yes, there can be too many, and move up to number 3 And as Kevin said, if Texans pick a defensive guy, right, you're still going to have at least Young or Carter available, or Young or Stroud available. He didn't say that. He said they both may be gone, which is going to be impossible because one of them will be taken first, and the Texans won't take them. But you'll have at least one of those available. AR-15 will be available. And it sort of makes sense if you're Kwesi to go all in now while you have the time, can sit him, let him learn, right? Which is going to be difficult. You take a guy at number 3, you expect him to start. But it makes sense in a business sense. Hey, I'm going to get fired in 4 years anyways if I don't take a chance. Here's my chance. That's why we're going to do it.
So the other thing, I think, Dave, you make a great point. The other thing is, like, whatever quarterback Minnesota takes, whether it's this year, next year, or whether they trade for like a Trey Lance or something, that's who Kwesi and Kevin are tying themselves to. Their entire job's going to be on the line if Anthony Richardson fails. Their entire job's going to be on the line if CJ Stroud doesn't hit. So, like, you only really do it if you love the guy. So if you go in and you go, I love so-and-so, and you're banging the table for Anthony Richardson on draft day, then you trade up and you trade the 3 first-round picks, and if he hits, no one will care that you traded 3 first-round picks. But it doesn't matter at what point of if it's this year, next year, whatever, how many picks you have to trade, the guy you're going to take is going to be the guy who gets you an extension or gets you fired. There is no in-between.
Exactly.
There's no way that you're going to survive Anthony Richardson busting, or if you trade next year and take Michael Pratt or whatever, him busting, you're not going to survive that. There's no way you survive that.
Well, I will say this twofold. One, Rick Spielman survived Christian Ponder, Teddy Bridgewater, and Sam Bradford. Like,
yeah, I mean,
this ownership is relatively patient as long as you stay competitive, and this team has shown an ability to overcome like quarterback unfortunate circumstances, and like it's just kind of like this organization is a little different. They're not impatient. They understand like shit happens, and they might actually give these guys one more chance, even though it would be difficult to see right now.
Tyler, the other thing would be if you trade 2 or 3 first-round picks and Anthony Richardson busts. I don't think you can go to that room in an offseason meeting with the ownership and go, our future's bright, because your future's not bright if you don't have first-round picks. Your future's not bright if you trade everything for player X or player Y. Like that player's gonna have to hit. And so you could try the quarterback carousel and go Indianapolis Colts this and go take Phillip Rivers for a year, then go take Carson Wentz for a year, and then go take Sam Ellinger for a year, and then go take Tua Tagovailoa for a year when he inevitably gets cut for Mike White. But like inevitably you're gonna have to like tie yourself to a quarterback. And Indianapolis has figured this out. Other teams have figured this out. Like at some point, you have to tie yourself to a quarterback.
And according to Spot Track, Kirk Cousins can be a free agent at the end of this upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean,
36 years old. I think this is the end of the Kirk Vikings experience with all the rumors about them trading up for a quarterback, them wanting to get a quarterback. This is, like Kevin said, this is the time for Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell to attach themselves to a quarterback. This is the perfect moment to do it. You draft a quarterback now like Anthony Richardson. Let Kirk play out the contract. See how far you can go with Kirk this last year. Let him go at the end of the season, and now you restart the clock for yourself.
I think there's also an argument to be had that like if you take a CJ Stroud, and I don't know who Minnesota likes more between Stroud or Richardson, because it feels like it's going to be between one of those two. If you like Stroud, then I think you play yourself into a situation where you can trade Kirk Cousins for picks and try and recuperate some value, even if it's a day 2 pick, and you go, you know what, we're not going to get the first back, but if we can get a day 2 pick for Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins is going to have a market. As bad as he might be at some things, he's still a league like above average quarterback. So he's going to have a market at some point. And so if you take a guy and you think he could start immediately, there's your opportunity to get a couple more picks and try and give yourself a quote unquote future if you trade 2 or 3 firsts.
Where it gets tricky is the fact that Minnesota is is quite literally so far away,
Yes.
and every other team in the division picks ahead of them, and therefore has more incentive to take a different offer. You know, if I don't know, let's say Chicago, let's say Stroud is available at 9 or whatever. He should go to Atlanta, but who knows? If he's available at 9 and Tennessee's calling, and they have a slightly worse offer than Minnesota in terms of raw capital, I think Chicago would know that Minnesota's moving up for a quarterback. So they'll sit there and go, absolutely not. I'm not. There's no way in hell. Like,
Yeah, I'm not
so
helping you get your guy.
yeah.
Like,
So that's where it gets tricky. Is it's like, what if, because Detroit is probably sitting there thinking the same strategy, right?
and
Detroit
they have
might. I
two
mean,
first.
and they have 2 firsts, exactly. So like, they have more capital. It just gets really tricky. Like, the rationale behind taking a quarterback now is perfect. It's just where the capital is like lining up right now, especially on the heels of the TJ Hawkinson trade. They don't have that second this year that would help a little bit. It's really dicey to sit there and say, in my opinion, like, if the board fell and like they wanted to go be aggressive, absolutely go do it. You go swing for the fences, because you don't last long in the NFL if you're not aggressive to a degree.
Yeah,
That's the one thing I'll give Howie Roseman credit for, is he's always swinging, always aggressive, right? Like, and he knows when to, and he knows how to time it. And I think that's something a lot of younger general managers are getting better at.
I mean, I think about it this way. I think about the Miami Dolphins and Chris Greer because he's been in that job for now. It seems like 25 years. It hasn't been, but it feels like it. And so he's tied himself to a quarterback in Tua, and he's decided, instead of sitting here and taking the 2 first round picks this year before Stephen Ross decided to get in bed with Tom Brady and Sean Payton, but like, he decided to say screw that and go trade those picks for guys. Like, at some point you have to get aggressive. At some point you have to say, this is what our team is. This is where we stand. And so the question is, do you do that this year? Do you say we're getting aggressive this year with the quarterback, or do you say that, hey, we built enough good faith last year making it to the playoffs that we could survive a year where we struggle a little bit and go, you know what, next year it may be a little bit less picks and we still get our guy. Now that depends on how much you like the 2024 class, and I've had a chance to dive into it, and I doubt they've had a chance to dive into it as much as other people. But like, at some point, you have to be able to trust your guts on whether you like this class or next year's class, because you're going to have to get a quarterback in one of these 2 years.
But
It's
I think
also
it end up like what Kevin is doing, where you keep pushing it back and saying like, hey, we'll get a quarterback in the next class, or hey, we just extended another guy, get a quarterback in 2025. You end up like the Colts, where you just keep going around in this
Yeah,
carousel of mediocrity. Eventually, like you guys said, you're gonna have to take the swing. I think you can take the swing now, but I do wonder how high up can they get from where they are now? And
I
in that
don't.
case, you do the
I
double jump,
personally,
like 23 to mid-teens and mid-teens to top 10.
but JP, here's the problem: they don't have the picks this year to be able to double jump. They don't have a second round pick to be able to double jump, and so you would have to be able to get a team willing to take future picks to double jump.
for
And then
players.
you'd have to be, and then you'd almost have to be willing to trade more assets than, like, saying, hey, are we going to wait till 8 where Atlanta is, or are we going to wait till 10 with Philly, because Philly's in a situation where they could trade down? Like, you have to be willing to, I think, just put all your chips in the table for moving up to 3 if that's what the trade is, or saying, hey, we're going to wait till 8 or 9 or 10. I mean, not 9 with Chicago, but 8, 10, 11, and see if we can get our guy at that situation instead of having to trade up for them.
It it also, to me, it really, at the end of the day, it really is about, what is your identity right now, as like, what are you approaching this draft and next season in mind? Are you trying to plan for the future? Most of us in the media sphere tend to go broad, and a lot of them are just focused on this upcoming season, right? Because we have the luxury of looking in on the outside and planning ahead for 4 years. So it really is. It's like, are they just going to be like, hey, we're going to go address the defense, we're going to go get playmakers, and just try and see and just push for one more year? The NFC is super weak. right now it's up for grabs with anybody. Aaron Rodgers just left, right? Like, are they going to try and push for the NFC North with Kirk and surround Kirk, or are they just going to be like, hey, you know what, we're going to go long term
So
and go all in on this other quarterback? And I think that's it really just depends on where they are, and I don't know if anybody has really outside of that room really knows.
I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
they've been pretty quiet about what they think, and they've said that they could be competitive next year. Now, every GM in the world is saying that they can be competitive next year because they have to. Like every general manager's banging the table saying we can compete for a Super Bowl next year when half those teams are bullcrapping themselves and everyone else. But like I think the other situation is, are you willing to at some point, and this is I guess a completely hypothetical because we don't know if he's truly available. Where does Trey Lance factor into this? Because if Trey Lance is available at some point, and they like Brock Purdy enough to say like Brock Purdy's our guy, or Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy's our guy, and yeah, like AJ, I heard the chuckle, I agree, but like, at what point does that factor in to be like a situation because you're likely tying yourself to him as well, and so are you willing to trade picks for a guy like Trey Lance and say, hey, we can keep 23, we can take a corner or wide receiver or something, and then take Trey Lance? Like, I just think that the Vikings are in this like weird quarterback purgatory of not having the assets to get aggressive in this year's class, picking so low on the board because they were so good last year. And so now you're in this situation of like you have so many different avenues that you can take, and all of them have downsides, all of them have upsides, all of them has positives. And so like you have to be able to figure out what is your move and then just stick to that gun. And if you get fired because of it, you get fired because of it. But like I would
You went down swinging, yeah.
yeah,
So
like,
here's my thing with Lance. Go ahead, AJ.
Well, and one last thing that I think hurts in terms of Minnesota with the quarterbacks, this draft class just does not have almost anybody exciting as like a developmental option, right? Like you can kind of sort of get intrigued by DTR. Jay Kaner kind of is what he is at this point, right? There's no like, this is a guy you take in the third round and you see where he is in 2 years. You know, stereotype. There's because all of them went back. They all went back to college because they were getting paid 7 figures to do so, right?
Yeah.
So it really limits Minnesota into this mindset of, it's like, if we don't get a quarterback now early, by the time our next pick comes around, who's going to be on the board? Like Tanner McKee? Like who cares?
Hendon Hooker, like
where he should be, yes. Where we're seeing, maybe not.
But like, so here's what I think. Like, just real quick, Tyler, if there was some Malik Willis this year, I would be banging the table to go, hey, go get Malik Willis 2.0 at the third round and, you know, give yourself a year of like trying to see if he develops into something. But as you mentioned, there isn't one. It's either like a guy who's going to be a guy you have to tie yourself to, or a guy who you draft as a backup. Go ahead.
Here's my question. I want to go back to the Trey Lance thing. At what point, how much draft capital do you have to give up for ownership to actually tie you to that player? Like, because I think there's a difference. If you only give up, let's say, pick 87 for the Vikings, third round pick, like, to me, you're not tying yourself to that guy because you didn't really give up a premium asset. You gave up a low day 2 pick to try a guy who's in year 3, has played like 4 games, and was the number 3 overall pick. Like, he has so many question marks. He started at least
started 4 and like played.
He has taken exactly 420 snaps since 2019.
Blaze it. Sorry,
exactly.
I
so, but like, at what point do you actually get tied to that player? Because you're not giving up a lot of assets. If it doesn't work after 1 year, you can just scrape it. Like, you can just be like, we're good.
I think the minute you start getting involved, if there's a 1 involved at all, if there's a 1 this year or a 1 next year, you're probably tying yourself to him, because that's a trade that takes a lot of guts to be able to give a 1 for Trey Lance. If it's a 2, if it's a future 2, I don't think you're tying yourself to him. Or but if it's like a 2 and a 3, I think you may be able to get in the conversation of like you might be tying yourself into him at some point.
To me, it's kind of like Seattle getting Drew Lock last year, right? Right. Obviously, Pete Carroll and John Schneider have the tenure of outlasting Drew Lock. But like we had no idea at that point about Geno Smith, like whether he was going to actually be this caliber of quarterback. And like, so they kind of just got it, like Drew Lock just to add to the room. So to me, I think it's kind of similar to like, you're not going to lose your job in that, like in essence, if that scenario happens, because you didn't really give up anything premium.
I would say it's closer to Miami trading for Josh Rosen on day 2 of that year's draft than
that's also
the Seahawks trading Russell Wilson for Drew Lock, because like the Seahawks got a first, they got assets for Russell Wilson outside of him. Like he was not the headliner of that, but like the Dolphins traded a second for Josh Rosen. They had plenty of picks at that point, and they were able to say like, hey, you know what? It's worth a try for a year. It obviously didn't work out. Then you go and get your guy. But like, if it's a 2 or a 3, I don't think you're tying yourself. But like, I think once you get in ones involved, or even a couple future picks, you may have to be able to answer for it if it doesn't work.
And
I think it also has to do a little bit with, I guess, the idea or the concept of Trey Lance. And it's kind of where we are with Trey Lance as a quarterback at this point. Former top 3 pick, guy with all the talent in the world. He just hasn't played enough to actually show it. I think when we have this discussion of tying yourself to Trey Lance, I think it has a lot to do with the idea of Trey Lance, where you're still treating him a little bit like a prospect because he kind of is.
So at this point, I don't think Trey Lance is any different than CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, except for draft capital, because he has not played enough for you to be able to judge what he's done. And he's not played enough in good situations to be able to judge what he's done. And so, like, at some point, you're just saying he's an incomplete evaluation, and you have to go based off draft evaluation, which is an inherent risk for a dude who's now in year 3 or year 4 of his contract.
Yeah, I mean, this is a moot point because I don't really think he's leaving San Fran.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think San Fran traded 3 firsts.
It's a fruitful discussion because you want to explore every possible option, and that's the scenario that Minnesota is in right now. Mainly just because Kirk's age and contract is coming up. Like if Kirk had 2 more years where they were tied to him, I think we're sitting here talking a little bit of different strategy. But he's up, and he'd be what, 36, 37?
He's 36. He'd be 36.
He's 36, so he'd be like that's not typically somebody you signed to long term. That's not Aaron Rodgers. So you're in this weird scenario now with Minnesota of like trying to balance this like short and long term scenario because you only have like a quarterback basically for this upcoming season.
Hey, real quick on the topic of Aaron Rodgers, did anyone watch his introductory press conference today? Because that might have been the funniest thing I've ever seen. From top to bottom, start to finish, it was quite literally comedy from the beginning because he said that he was like excited to work with the New York media. And I think I texted JP at that point. He's like, dude, this is going to last 2 weeks. Two weeks.
My favorite quote of the day of probably this entire offseason was him being like, Zach Wilson said he's going to make the practice field hell, and I'm going to make it heaven off the field. And everybody's like, what does that even mean?
You know what that means? That means he's not going to have to see an opposing defense. That is he doesn't have to see a defense. He doesn't have to read anything. Just sit on the bench with your little ninja headband on and look cool.
No, I will say there is an argument to trade for Zach Wilson if you wanna give yourself a young quarterback to bet on.
My favorite thing was one Robert Saleh, I believe, coming out and saying that Zach Wilson's ceiling was unlimited. Which is exactly why they decided to just say screw you.
Know what?
And the entire locker room celebrated to get Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, his ceiling will be unlimited.
My other thing, and it ties into the unlimited, is Aaron Rodgers coming out and saying, yeah, I'm here because Nathaniel Hackett. And the collective sigh that came out of Broncos Twitter at that moment was just hilarious because everybody started going like, let's ride, like, let's go.
I think the other funny thing was they had asked him a few times. I think one of them was Justine Anderson asked him, like, is this a long-term thing? Like, are you here for more than 1 year? And he goes, we'll just have to see what the future holds. And I go, yeah, you're gone after a year. dude, see ya. Like you're gonna go to your darkness retreat after this year.
We didn't discuss the funniest thing, which is the fact that he doesn't take regular phone calls.
He only FaceTimes.
He thinks he's like in some American Psycho. He thinks he's those TikTok videos, or he's the stoic guy. 300 followers.
Patrick Bateman.
No, you are the quarterback of an NFL franchise. Grow up. You are
He went on a darkness retreat when it was in the middle of a trade rumor. He just said, "You know what? I'm going to solitary confinement for 6 weeks. Stop me. Who's going to stop me?"
Lucas came out. It was like, I don't even really want to talk about it. He's like, I don't. It's whatever. It's just like this is a man who had enough. Right? He was tired.
Oh God.
He went to solitary confinement, and the Green Bay Packers just like, "Have fun, dude. See you in 6 weeks."
Bye.
You know how mad I'd be if I went into solitary confinement and came out a jet? I'd be so mad, dog.
All right, hey, guys. I don't know if you're paying attention to the comments, but my wife is coming home from the Keys today, and she's just roasting me, saying she can't wait till the draft is done.
Me too.
Same. Retweet.
Yeah, babe, you're not the only one who can't wait for the draft to be done. We're all ready.
Personally, I am so ready for Tyler to stop DMing me every day, asking when a mock draft is done, and then criticizing the spelling of it. But whatever.
Listen, buddy. Spell Quentin right. Spell Quentin
No, I won't. You know what I won't.
Kevin, I'm asking you to spell and have Grammarly. And you know what? We're gonna get into this because it's not that you just don't spell the names right. You spell the names wrong in the headline, and then underneath it you spell it right.
No. Kevin, spell Brian like on the spot right now. Just spell Brian.
Bryan.
You sure?
Bryan. That's how you spell Brian Percy's first name.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% positive. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Am I wrong? Worked 6 weeks ago.
You want to check?
This is for Alex has just posted. Maybe if you learn to spell, he wouldn't criticize you, Kevin.
I was right. No further question. No further questions.
All right.
I beat the allegations.
We've been going for 50 minutes. Let's try and get some more topics in.
Oh my gosh, have we already been at it for that long?
Yeah, I know. This is how much fun we're having. Let's
I will never be allowed on one of these again.
Thank God.
Yeah, you will, but you're gonna get roasted. Let's talk about the quarterback class. All right. So my final mock draft drops tomorrow for Vikings Wire, and as I'm going through it, I realized that Christian Gonzalez went at 16 to the Commanders, and I think that's low, but at the same time, I can really see both a quarterback and a offensive line run early. Is there a chance with this deep corner class we really see them fall?
Yes,
I think.
I think it's 100% opportunity.
Because if the team's going to trade up for a quarterback, and we end up going quarterbacks 1 through 4, there's gonna be a guy that falls, and unfortunately, it's got to be one of these corners. I think in the event that Christian Gonzalez falls, I mean, for Detroit especially, it'd have to be like Will Anderson on the board, which could possibly happen still. But I think that they're going to be the unfortunate on the other side of the run on quarterbacks, the run on offensive line. I think the Jets and Packers trade really didn't change much, but they're going to be those guys who end up being in the green room for a little bit longer than they should have.
I think the top two, Gonzalez and Witherspoon, are likely the ones who don't fall. But like the Joey Porter, Deontay Banks tier, like one of those guys could absolutely fall further than expected, because I feel like there's a lot of teams in the middle of the draft who could take a cornerback, but also could take literally anything else. I mean, like Pittsburgh could take Joey Porter Jr. They could also take Miles Murphy or Brian Brzee or whoever else like they want at that point. Washington lineman. Yeah, they could take any offensive lineman. Washington
but only if Mike Tomlin showed up. Like,
only if Mike Tomlin was there.
Alex is watching. Only if Mike
gotta get-
Tomlin showed
they gotta
up.
get- They got to get the Mike Tomlin.
If Porter is available when the Steelers pick, the Steelers will pick Porter. Period.
I think it's likely.
a done
I think
deal.
it's likely.
100%. You cannot look that man's father in the eye and say
Exactly.
We didn't draft your kid. We actually went Osiris Torrance, but it was fine.
This is exactly why I think Dallas is going to end up with Deuce Vaughn, because
especially
his dad is a scout, and they're going to be like, yeah, sorry, we thought your kid was really bad. Like, no, they're not going to do that.
No, it's different for like Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn is like 4 feet tall. Okay, like that's a completely different conversation. You cannot hit that.
Deuce
a
Vaughn
small
is
running
somehow
back,
an
right?
inch and a half smaller than Darren Sproles.
I
Look,
thought you were
he
going to say
can't-
somebody else.
I just think that if you look at Washington, if you look at Pittsburgh, I forgot their team for a second. You look at even like Seattle, Detroit, if they don't take a cornerback at 6 and they go edge, like all these teams could take a cornerback. They could also deviate from that and take literally like 6 other positions. And so I think you either see 4 cornerbacks off the board early, or you see 2 off the board and you see 1 or 2 fall.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's an in-between of like 3 going and then the other one waiting.
We just keep hearing about this offensive line run going early. At least I am. And like guys like Darnell Wright
happen.
sneaking into the top 10. Paris Johnson Jr., I think, is now the betting favorite to go number 3. And then you've got Broderick Jones and Peter Skoronski. And then guys like Anton Harrison could sneak up. Wouldn't be shocked if you see like a Matthew Bergeron end up sneaking into round 1 just because of that offensive line need. Osiris Torrance, John Michael Schmitz. Hell, you could see like 7 or 8 offensive linemen go in round 1, and I don't think it would be that big of a surprise. That's why, like, even though Gonzalez is like a top 10 player for me, and I think he should go in the top 10 in this draft, I could see a scenario where Witherspoon is the first guy to go, and then because of all the other positions that have runs, defensive line, quarterback, offensive line, and then you have like a Smith and Jigba sneaking in there, that he could end up sliding a little bit.
I think if there were 2 positions I would bet money on right now, if like there's going to be a fall at some point, I would say it's between corner and wide receiver, because I think these classes are unique in different ways, and it's like if there's going to be a fall and one of these positions are likely going to see a guy fall into the second round that probably shouldn't go in the second round, it's between those 2 positions, I think, because offensive line, you're going to see a few go. Quarterback, I think you'll see all 4 go in the first round at some point, probably all top 15. And even like edge, you're going to see these guys probably stay around the top 25 mark. And so, like, is there an opportunity for a guy like Joey Porter to fall late first or even like early second? Because like I think that there's a possibility that happens, or Dante Banks. And so it's sort of hard to predict of like where these guys go, because there's so many teams who are sort of in this like in between tier of like they need a cornerback, but they can also go like 6 other positions. What's the laughing? What's the laughing?
Where it gets interesting for me is like Devin Witherspoon is such a size outlier in terms, like he came in at like exactly 181, and I think there's been 2 corners that have been drafted at that weight since 2000, something insane like that. So it gets I've drafted in the first 2 rounds. Let me clarify, because there's obviously been more, but so like if there's a chance he falls, I would say it'd be more on that. Deontay Banks's age could be another thing. He's already 23, and that it's a lot of teams now, especially some of the analytics fronts, have those age guidelines already. So he might be a little like aged out of their brackets. So it really just depends for me. I off of like tape and merit alone, Witherspoon and Gonzalez should be top 10 guys in this class. But I think every point that's been raised so far of quarterbacks, tackles, and pass rushers pushing guys down the board is incredibly likely. And I think if you're a team, God, you're sitting there at 14 or 16 or somewhere in that area, you're absolutely sitting there going like, one of these guys is going to fall to me, and you get a chance to just basically sprint up to the podium, no thoughts asked.
Imagine Devin Witherspoon with the Patriots at 14. That would be
Nope, I don't want to. You know what? I don't want to.
That'd be pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie.
But I do agree with what y'all have been saying. I think if there's any position that I think is going to be, like I said, the unfortunate on the other side of the run that's going to happen on quarterbacks and offensive linemen, because we kind of see that every year now, because you just keep swinging, keep taking shots at quarterback, keep swinging at offensive line, and until you get one right. So, and I mean that's not a problem, but I think this year it'll be the corners that end up falling. The receivers are going to fall. I think the consensus since like late December, early January was that this wide receiver class wasn't as great as years in the past. So these guys are going to fall inherently. But yeah, I think in the event that you get a guy like Devin Witherspoon falling, or even Christian Gonzalez falling, you take that opportunity if you're sitting there at like 14, 16, 17.
I think about it this way. Like in particular with the wide receiver class, like I feel like this wide receiver class is a whole bunch of number 2s and not enough number 1s. I don't think there is a number 1 in this year's wide receiver class. Of like a dude who I think is going to absolutely dominate in the NFL and be like the guy. Yeah, I mean,
Quentin Johnson.
You love Quentin Johnson. I think he's a good player, but like I don't look at this class and go, this guy is a guy who's going to be a number 1. Like, God, what class was it? 2021 with the Jamar Chase and the Jalen Waddle. Like those two were guys who everyone said, these guys are going to be impactful players at the next level. They can be number 1s, and they've both proven that they can be number 1s. Like, I don't see that in this year's class. And so is a team willing to take a number 2 when they could go get a Tyler Scott on day 2 or a Rashee Rice on day 2 and feel similar about like their contribution in the next level of like, they're probably both number 2s or number 3s.
Yeah. I'm not with the thought process that just because it's a weaker class, it'll push these guys down. This is the NFL. It's a premium position. They're going to find a way to get these guys drafted. I wouldn't be shocked if we see 4 or 5 guys taken in round 1. Would I agree with that? That's a completely different discussion.
Yeah. What receiver or corner?
Receivers.
I don't see 5. I see 4. I don't see 5.
I think 4 is going to. I think 4.
Here are the guys.
I think 1.
I think the ones that you can write in ink that'll go: Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Quentin Johnson. I think will all go in round 1.
I don't think Johnston's a guarantee in the first round. I don't think he is.
I think he is. The athleticism, the size,
the bad tape. The NFL loves it. They love it.
The stone hands. The stone hands. I mean, every team loves stone hands.
Fourth one. I think Addison probably goes in round 1.
So yeah, I think Addison
your 4, and then you get a surprise. Like somebody's going to be obsessed with Jalen Hyatt enough where he may go round 1. Should he? Hell no.
Oh, if that happens, I'll be laughing on Thursday.
We have a bit of breaking news here for JP. The Jaguars just extended Devon Hamilton to a 3-year, $34.5 million deal.
23 guaranteed. 23 million guaranteed. Good deal. Good deal for him. Good deal for him. Good deal for him. I like that deal.
Love that guy. Super cool dude. He's also like one of the few urban picks that actually like turned out to be good. No, he wasn't an urban pick. He was the last what's his name? Dave Caldwell. He was the last Dave Caldwell draft.
He was the Ohio State nose tackle, right?
Yeah, he was in the 2020 draft where the Jaguars went Jay Henderson and Caleb on Chison at 9 and 20.
Yeah.
And then
they're both gone.
All right. It's 7:00. We should probably wrap this up, even though we could literally go all night. I have to go and watch AEW because I have other content responsibilities. Tried to get out of it. Oh, shut your mouth, Kevin.
I'm gonna go watch hockey after this. I don't know why I'm talking.
I have 3 TVs. Hockey will be on. So, all right. Before we go, guys, we're gonna go left to right on the screen. Give me your biggest bold prediction for the NFL draft this weekend, starting with Kevin.
No running backs go round 1. I think I don't see it. Like, I think that there's a situation where Bijan Robinson doesn't go number 1, and that would be deviating from what most people have had in their mock of like he could go as high as 8. I think that there's a real situation where he doesn't go round 1.
AJ?
You put me on the spot here, and I'm trying to think. I would say we will see the most trades of any draft in the last few years. I'd put maybe last 3 or 4 drafts. I'll put it at that.
Especially with this being a weaker class, people may have one guy left on their board with the first round grade. They may go chase him. That's a good call. JP.
My bold prediction is that the Cardinals go full fire sale and trade Budda Baker and DeAndre Hopkins on one of the NFL drafts.
Okay, real quick.
And Kyler Murray.
Real quick, Tyler. I checked Hopkins' contract because I was talking about this like right before we started. I think that's more of a post-June 1st trade with the cap implications of the dead money, because it's like $20 million dead if the Cardinals trade him tomorrow, and it's
what's his cap hit right now?
It's $20 million total. If so, it would be 20. It's like $20 million dead, $10 million savings if they trade him before June 1st, and after June 1st, it's like $9 million dead cap. And so, like, I think that's probably more likely than them taking on the $20 million in dead cap.
Okay.
Now,
Dave, do you have any bold predictions?
That's going to be wild tomorrow night. Expect the unexpected and enjoy yourself and drink some very good beverages because you'll need them.
Jake Moody, round 1. I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen it all.
Wait, hold on. What are we all having? What are we all having? What's the spread for tomorrow night?
Don't know.
I'm doing wings. Thought about this. I'm 100% doing wings. Pizza and wings, baby.
We'll figure that. We'll cross that bridge.
Coffee. A lot of coffee. A lot of coffee. I'm not healthy about coffee.
All right. My bold prediction: the Vikings will take a quarterback in round 1. I don't know if that's very bold, but I'm making it.
Yeah, I don't think that's bold right now. I think that you should, like, Jake Moody at 23 is probably a little more bold. But
all right, my actual bold prediction: Christian Gonzalez falls to 16.
That's
because that's what I mocked. Even though I hate it, it's just how it happened. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining. Thank you all for jumping in the comments. This is one of the better shows we've done since the move to Vikings First SKOL. So thank you. This was a very unique show because it was just a bunch of hilarious chaos involving 4 individuals who know a lot about the draft. Chris, I would guess a trade up, yes. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I know we didn't get up to a lot of the stuff you guys were talking about in the live guest chat, but if you leave them in the comments, I will go answer them here tonight and tomorrow morning. And Dylan, you may think it's the worst answer, but you won't when the night's done if everything I think is coming true. So with that, gentlemen, thank you very much. Dave, what's the one thing we always say before we go?
Skol Vikings! Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. Skol, everyone!